Okay. Holy moly. As soon as I get my, hold on, where's my book? Here. Let me grab my.
Say roll.
Thank you.
We got time.
I didn't hear my name.
Doug?
Here. Yes.
Harlan? Yes.
Present. She's gonna do it.
And Mr. Bivens in the back there.
Harlan. He's here. I see him.
Okay,
Essentially, just
move him up.
you can't.
No, I'm sorry.
We'll go through.
All right, you want roll call? Okay, Jim Sheeline, Arlen McLean,
Here.
Tom Kitson,
Present.
Larry Mamini,
Present.
Doug Farster,
Present.
Rick Humphrey, Tim Bivens.
This is need announce you guys talk about.
Out of one. Oh, Jason.
Give you a break, you ready? Somebody lean down.
Arlen, would you use your microphone, please?
Sorry, I never do. And I always screw up.
Oh, coffee.
I switched them.
Thanks, Larry.
Okay, can you hear me? Yep.
That goes for you too, Jason. Mike, please.
Go ahead, Jason. Choice.
Good morning, everyone. We're here today, as we were with the ARPA committee, to make a request for a contribution to a grant for a economic development study to be done in the area of Lee County from the county line to the village of Stewart. The Economic Development Administration is an arm of the United States Department of Commerce, and they issue grants for a whole variety of economic development reasons. This particular grant is to do, it's called a technical assistance grant that will allow us to put together an entire economic development plan from the county line, which you see on this map, which this is where all the developments occurred in Rochelle in the last 40 years, to doing a study that will basically take this entire 2,000 acres and research the whole area in terms of road improvements, where utility extensions will be, stormwater plan, every aspect that you need to take into consideration to get a piece of property marketable and ready for site selectors to consider. Now, if you see at the top of this, north of the county line, this is all the economic industrial development that's occurred in the last 40 years. That Rochelle has put all of the utility infrastructure, railroad infrastructure in place to allow for all this development to occur. There are 14 industries that are located in this section of Rochelle that were all basically built in the last 40 years. And how did that happen? There was a plan. And the plan basically laid out the utilities, laid out the stormwater, brought in developers that could come in and help us develop the land, build the infrastructure. So what we're basically saying today is the EDA grant will fund a study to basically what we did here over the last 40 years, lay a roadmap for us to do this here in the Lee County area. Now, just point out what the investments have been on the city of Rochelle side. In the last 10 years, the city has run a 21-inch sewer line to here, put a 16-inch water line to here, built a new water tower, radium plant here, extended the city rail system through to here. Again, the county line is right here. Built this transloading system here, bought another 50 acres of right of way for future rail in that area. Altogether, about $35 million has been spent on putting the infrastructure in place to this point here at Hayes Road. The Greater Rochelle Economic Development Corporation and LCIDA together went through and paid about $70,000 to have all the environmental work, phase one environmental, archaeological study, soil boring, all of that in this area, this 1,000 acres right here, so that we knew what we had when it came to showing site selectors, what this soil and what this land, how it lies and how it drains and where all the infrastructure lies. What we really need today now is to basically put together a whole comprehensive plan. Primarily, one of the primary ones is transportation. And I see Sheriff Simonson just walked in, and we've talked about this with Sheriff Simonson. The problem that we have today with all this truck traffic coming down through Lee County is of course crossing the BNSF here, coming to this intersection at the cemetery and the school, crossing the BNSF here, of course, to get to the I-39 interchange. It's extremely busy interchange considering the size of the community. One of the things that we have is a proposed idea that will be verified if this study can be done, is to put a bypass around the village of Stewart and using the Elba Road right away, building an overpass and coming over to this side of the community. All of that information will be, of course, presented in a study, a comprehensive study. Now, the grant is a $250,000 grant. The match is 50%, so $125,000 is the match. The Enterprise Zone Board, which, let's see, John, you serve on the Enterprise Zone Board, as well as I think Chairman Olson, or no, I guess you represent Chairman Olson. The Enterprise Zone Board agreed to put $50,000 into the match. We thought that that would be the complete match back when we applied. The EDA has many buckets of money that they issue for various economic development projects. The money that we went and applied for, which we thought was an 80-20 grant, we had to come up with 20%, 80% with EDA. Turns out that money was gone by the time the application was received. However, they came back and they said, we think your project is a worthy project, but we have another program that's a 50% match. So $250,000, $50,000, half of that is 125 minus the 50, which is what the Enterprise Zone Board is putting into it. There's a $75,000 gap. So in fact, Andy Shaw, Andy's with us via Zoom. Andy and I worked together and said, well, we need to come up with $75,000. We came to ARPA and understood that you've got $500,000 dedicated to community and business development. And so we thought, okay, maybe if you would be willing, that's where that $75,000 could come from. I think the important thing here is that not just the amount of money or just that there's any money involved, it's the partnership that we really need to have between Lee County, the city of Rochelle, the village of Stewart, LCIDA, the Greater Rochelle Economic Development Corporation, working together to really bring economic growth and development to this section. So much of the infrastructure is already there, but the lack of a comprehensive economic development plan is not there. And that's what this money the EDA would issue would create, is that study. It will take a year. It'll take a year to put all the data together, to bring all the stakeholders together, as I just mentioned, and get an agreement and consensus on what exactly and how this development should occur. But it'll never really occur without a plan. And that's why I'm here today to ask you to help us put together, all of us together, put together a comprehensive plan that will really bring, I believe, significant investment into this section of Lee County. Yes, sir.
So just a heads up that the ARPA committee did approve this out of that economic development, business development bucket of money and moved it to this committee for your approval. And later on your agenda, you actually have the action item to consider this, which you can take now if you want. I'm just saying it's on the under new business.
Yeah, sir.
We met a couple of years ago. It's a long.
Oh, it's been more than a couple of years ago.
We met a while ago.
Yeah.
And one of the issues then, and probably still an issue now, is how does both entities pay for it? And the thing I was amazed at is there's a lot of money involved in charging for cars, making cars, rail cars. What, I don't know what you call them. Do we need to work that stuff out before we do the grant? I mean, does that need to be part of the grant? How we fund in long term?
How you fund the infrastructure projects? Is that what you're asking?
And how do the counties, it's working the partnership between Lee County and all the other entities.
Okay, so if I understand your question, is that, okay, so you do the study and then you discover that you're gonna need $4 million for this and $3 million for that, and okay? So the way this has worked up here all these years is that we have a project. So for instance, let's just use this as about 250 acres here. Let's say a company comes in and they want to put a major manufacturing plant there, and they're going to buy that 250 acres, and they say we're going to need X amount of water, X amount of sewer, we need to widen Stewart Road. Every time a project that brings jobs to a community, there are a variety of buckets of money that the city of Rochelle, and in some cases the county of Ogle, will go and apply for economic development money. So at the Department of Commerce in Illinois, there's money for incentives, for grant programs, for water, sewer. IDOT has programs to improve roads. It's kind of like, once you can attract a project, money follows the project. I'll give you an example. These buildings that were Nippon Sharyo buildings, this Nippon Sharyo project, as you may recall, happened about 12 years ago. And today that facility is being repurposed as a steel mill. But back in the day when Nippon Sharyo made the announcement that they were going to create 150 jobs and they were going to invest $25 million into the first building, the Illinois Department of Transportation brought $2 million to the improvements of the road to that building. DCEO, I think, put something like $2 or $3 million into water and sewer. There was a federal grant, EDA grant, that put $2.5 million to run to rail there. When it comes down to the public funding investment and the private investment, because developers oftentimes pay a share as well. So it's kind of like the way we've always treated these big infrastructure investments is, it's like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? So when we built the Stewart Road overpass here, the BNSF put in 5%. The city of Rochelle put in 5%. The ICC put in 45%. The EDA put in 40%. There was a 5% match that we had to come up with locally to pay for the overpass. So these things take a lot of time, Arlen, but the point is that when you have an actual plan, that you can take that plan and you can show it to that Department of Commerce or that Department of Transportation, and you can say, we spent the money to put this plan together, about 80% of your objections are taken care of because you had the foresight to put a plan together.
No, I totally concur with what you're saying, because it's been well planned, well thought of. It's a place that should always rank really well because it's been well thought out, done. There was no, this is a discussion between a few of us at that time, that there was no payback or interagency agreement between us and Rochelle, because it was a substantial amount of money, if my memory is right. And it's not as good as it used to be. Available, they charged the railroad so much per car that time for staying overnight. I may have the details wrong.
You're talking about the switching operation of the City of Rochelle Railroad?
Yes.
Okay, so the railroad itself, right, works with the Class 1 railroad. The Class 1 railroad drops cars
Right.
onto the City of Rochelle Railroad system.
Right.
And then every industry has a spur or a track that we service to, right? And those industries then pay to have those cars delivered to their, and we have a switching operator that then takes the car from the Union Pacific interchange track and delivers it that last mile to the front door. And they are the switching operation, that switching operation is paid for through the railroad and through the customer.
And my question, I guess, is there any way a small portion of that money can be given to the county to give its payback stuff?
Well, a significant amount of that money all goes back into the railroad, of course.
Right,
The way in which we've been able to build this railroad out is that we take the funds that are a portion of the cities, and we then let that accumulate. It's like our piggy bank, right? And then when it comes time to build a $7 million addition, just like we just did 2 years ago,
right.
that $7 million required $1 million match. So that money is just, today we're at a place where the revenue just goes back into the railroad. Now, like any infrastructure that the government needs to fund, the hope is that someday that the railroad will be in a situation where it won't be depending on grants, because it's taken 40 years to get to where we're at because we've done it through grants, right? But it is what it is. It takes that long. When you're out here in rural America, you don't have deep pockets for anything, right? You just do what you got to do. But that revenue today is primarily used to pour back into the railroad. The revenue that the county, I think, sees and will see is if you take and if you took the equalized assessed value of all the industrial development that's occurred on the north side here, it's over $100 million. That $100 million is something that I believe is very realistic for what could be developed here. Oh, over time, not overnight, but over time. And the tax rate is at, like, what do we say, 10%? So if you had figured that there was $100 million of EAV that was developed on the Lee County side of this at 10%, that's $10 million.
But that's when you have all the things running. I mean, that's a long time in the future.
That's over time, right? That's over time. As every project would be built south of the county line, that EAV would go to, of course, the taxing districts that are in that area, which of course is the Stewart School District, the Rochelle High School District, Lee County, City of Rochelle. This property has not been annexed yet into the city, but there is a plan at Elva Road. There's a boundary agreement between the Village of Stewart and the City of Rochelle at Elva Road. So Stewart could annex up to Elva Road. Eventually Rochelle will annex down to Elva Road.
Yeah, and I totally agree with the long-term plan of how the investment works, but the question is, we'll have, let's say we have one small factory goes in, we'll get the UAV on that, but it's going to take a long time to get the initial payback. My guess is there'll be more requests made of Lee County to need to put in more money because it's a huge project for all of us.
Well, yeah, in fact, there will be, it's a conversation I'm not sure who we need to have with, but right now, that bridge right here on Johns Creek, that bridge right there is a bridge that Dave Anderson and I have talked about, and I know that you've studied this, the hydrologies around this bridge. This is an investment that's going to need to be made at some point in time, and of course, the rebuilding of Stewart Road will need to be done. Here's the beauty of what I've talked about, is that if we attract any kind of a business south of the county line, IDOT's economic development programming money could pick up 50% of the cost. It's the idea, it's the chicken and egg thing, right? Which comes first? We need to have an industry actually find any portion of this land down here attractive to them to then say, we'd like to build our 250,000 square foot manufacturing building here. And IDOT will say, well, okay, what kind of road infrastructure improvements need to be made? And then those funds will flow. Will the county have to make some investment? Yes. As the city of Rochelle has made investments over the years, but it's the idea of jobs being created, tax base being expanded, and the opportunity for that revenue to come forever, well, forever is a long time, for a long time, right? But once the investment's made, then of course that tax base is there.
And my point is only that, the only thing that I think is lacking now is how you divide up a pre-agreement of how the money is going to be divided after it starts, because at this point now, you guys will annex it eventually, in the city, so you get taxes from the county, and the only thing we'll get is county. I did some preliminary numbers. It wasn't anywhere close to $10 million unless you had everything full and whatever. So it's just having a pre-building agreement or some discussion of that.
Well, the tax levy is something that you adjust every year, right?
Right.
So it would be whatever the levy would be at the time in which the improvements would be made. And of course, this whole area, which is part of our plan, our joint plan with the enterprise, all of this is in the Lee Ogle enterprise zone.
Right.
So that's all part of the whole incentive of seeing that development occur. But in terms of dividing the money, I'm not clear what your question is.
Well, for example, let's say you do the same agreement on the railroad, because there was a lot of money available on that, and you guys usually have an agreement because you own the electrical plant, things like that. So there's a lot more money available, as should be, because you guys incurred the majority of the cost. We didn't have anything yet that I'm aware of that tells us anything we're going to get other than the EAV.
Right. Yeah, Marilyn.
I think, and I'm not sure, I can't understand all of Aaron's comments, but it seems to me that everybody's worried that this area is going to be annexed into Rochelle and we're going to lose. No, we're not going to lose. We're still going to get our appropriate tax. We'll have the EAV, the bigger the levy, we'll get our appropriate money from that. They will be paying more than Rochelle, because Rochelle will also be taxing them. But we're not going to lose tax revenue because Rochelle annexes.
No, it's a sum gain. What you get now on that farmland, I don't know what farmland's taxed at in Lee County, but
No, it'll be a gain, no question. The question is there other available funds the county could be able to obtain? For example, I was under the impression that there was so much a week that a railroad would pay to have their trains, parked on the
there's storage fees.
right.
Mhm.
And let's say the figure was $5 a month or whatever. Could we get 50 cents of that? And so the Rochelle get 450? That's the point.
Well, the revenue that comes from the railroad, as I mentioned earlier, we have to have revenue to do the maintenance on the railroad, to operate the railroad. The operator, the switching operator takes a significant, the Rochelle Railroad is, when it was created 40 years ago, it was never considered to be a sum game positive profit center. It was all about creating jobs. It was all about creating tax base. It was all about attracting more industry to Rochelle, and it's been successful. I mean, you take all these industries that have come as a result of that, and it's the railroad for years really operated at a break even or even to a loss. The hope is that we gain enough volume here to where that, like right now, I'll give you an example. Right now, the railroad terminates at this point right here, but I don't know if you can see that. The right of way, you extend the rail down to here, where there'll be hopefully a new switch. From here to here is $20 million. And what we're hoping is that we can accumulate enough money in I'll call our piggy bank, that we'll have a $2 or $3 million match where we can get this $20 million to extend this all the way into Lee County, right down here to where we switch it. That revenue is critical that we can show to a grant writer that we've got the revenue here And we've got the project here, and by adding this much additional rail, we're gonna serve all of this land here. It's all tied to revenue that you're generating that you can then attract those kinds of matching funds.
Right.
Yeah, Tim.
Thank you, Jason. In your previous presentation, it's been pointed out, Mayor said it, that Rochelle has invested over $30 million into California. And we, at this point, are now invested. This is a small ask, but appropriate, I think, motion that we honor the benefit request of $75,000 and our committee. Back to here. Negative basis out of county board. I would make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Got 2 seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passed.
Okay, thank you. Now, Andy, are you there? Can you hear us? You're on mute. Andy? All right, well, the EDA grant, it's got to go county board next Thursday, right?
Correct.
Go to executive.
Okay, so it'll be official after the county board votes on it, right? Okay. Then what Dan Payette and Andy Shaw got the application ready to submit it again. And with your match and contribution, that will allow us to basically show the EDA we have the matching funds, which is critical, of course, obviously, to winning the award. So thank you very much. I guess I'll be here next week to show the whole county board, right?
I'm going to leave that up to the discretion of the committee. Now, this is Jason's presented this a couple different times. What do you think? Do you want him there to answer questions? If not, do a full-blown presentation?
Well, I know that
I don't like it, Jason, but.
Yeah.
there's county board members that maybe are interested in the whole overall development of the area, but I'm happy to come do whatever.
I would say plan on being here and at least to answer questions, and we'll,
6 o'clock at the evening.
yes, correct.
Good.
Hey, Arlen,
Thanks, Jason.
did we get an all in favor? Did you do that?
We had a vote.
Okay, yes. Okay, sorry, we were distracted up here. We didn't hear it. Also, Tim, I'm not sure if your mic is working because we were struggling to hear what you said, and more importantly, potentially people on Zoom maybe didn't hear it. So I am just going to reiterate that the motion was to approve the $75,000 requested money as per ARPA's recommendation and move it to the full board for a vote next Thursday. Is that accurately summarizing what you said?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, gentlemen, good work. Have everybody reviewed the minutes from last meeting? Was there any improvement or corrections?
I make the motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
I'll second.
Treasurer's report. I don't think we have a treasurer here today.
You have reports in on board. Paula was not able to be here today. She's down at the county officials conference. So you've got reports in there if you have any questions. I have reviewed the report, and I can tell you from not only reviewing it, but discussions with Paula that things are very much tracking as expected in terms of expenses and revenue. In fact, revenue, while we haven't, of course, seen any property tax revenue yet, which is our biggest piece of the revenue that comes into the county, we are tracking sales tax and income tax, and that is tracking a little higher than what we anticipated or what we budgeted for. So other than that, I didn't see anything extraordinary that needed to be identified, but I'd be happy to entertain any questions you might have.
We have any budget responsibility with the art money going to Rochelle? Do we need to do anything more than what we?
Nope. Nope, what you just did will take care of that. And of course, the full board vote will take care of that.
Thank you.
Do we need a motion for the treasurer's report or no? No? Okay.
Need a motion? Good job.
I didn't know.
For pool financials.
Arlen, since this is not a quarterly report, we don't typically approve it. It's just really Paula providing you guys monthly information about where we're at with things. So you don't even need a motion.
Never mind. Insurance report. And
So we don't have an insurance committee report. Yes, thank you, Tom. Go for it. I'm sorry. We're actually meeting next Monday, so we'll report next month to the finance committee.
We're down to compensation. Is there any order you want to take those in, talk individually about zoning and county board? Hey,
County board's first one up, and just as a reminder, this is something that you've been talking about doing for several months. What you see in front of you was a recommendation that came out of Administrative Services Committee and then was forwarded to you. Since Administrative Services Committee forwarded that to you, there was one addition, and that is, and forgive me, I'm trying to scroll down here.
or is there discussion of these?
Bring it off the table if we want to discuss it.
What's that?
Let's bring it off the table if we want to discuss it, right? It's table.
Yes, that's the first thing you want to do is bring it off the table if you want to move this forward.
Third vote for taking it off table.
Somebody needs to make a motion to bring it off the table.
So move.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, now it's off the table. Now, do you want to entertain a motion in a second and open discussion on the topic? And then I can explain a little bit about what we've got.
Sounds wonderful.
Make the motion.
Know the issues of pay for county board going from 60 days.
I'll make a motion to
Okay.
approve the expenditure
Okay.
request.
And move it to county board, we added.
County board, thank you.
Okay, any discussion?
Do we have a second?
There a second?
Doug seconds. So you do have, my apologies, I did not get the board action request form attached in on board, but Becky did send it to you yesterday when we realized that we didn't have it, thanks to Tim for pointing out, what the heck, where's the financial analysis? The financial analysis estimated the change from $60 to $80 per diem, along with increasing the board chairman's, sorry. Increasing the board chairman to $8,400. A stipend of $1,200 for the vice chair and stipend for the committee chairs of $600. All told, the estimate, depending upon the number of meetings that are held, of course, but the estimated impact to the budget per year is about $14,000.
Wendy, I talked about this a little bit yesterday with a couple members, and it wouldn't apply till to the county members till the new ones take effect. And
That is
January 1.
absolutely correct and an important distinction because you
I think-
cannot vote in a raise for a sitting board. So this would not take effect until the next board takes office, which would be, of course, after December 1 of 2022.
I would suggest that we do make it, we wouldn't have to wait for the zoning board. We could start doing that once it.
That is correct. The zoning board, that's not a requirement. It's you, because you're the body that is making the decision to make the raise. So you can't impose it on yourselves right now. It has to wait till the next time, but you
I
could
guess
do
at
it with
this
zoning.
point, we're just voting on the raises and subsidies stipend for the chairs.
That's correct. Right now, we're just talking about county board. The zoning board will be next on the agenda.
there any comments? Okay.
I don't like voting for a raise for myself. So, I know.
Okay. Any other comments? I think we probably should do a roll call vote.
Arlen McLean,
Yes.
Tom Kitson,
No.
Larry Mamini,
No.
Doug Farster,
Yes.
Rick Humphrey,
I gotta apologize. I lost it for a little bit. What were you voting on?
So Rick, this is the, a motion to approve the recommended county board per diem change from $60 to $80.
Yes.
and Tim Bivens.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Yeah, he's working, so he's been identified as working.
This is a good time to remind everybody, if you do intend to attend by Zoom, be sure and let us know, because that's what your board rules say. Rick did call in advance, and so we were aware of it. The reason for that is not because we want to grant you permission, but rather we have to make sure there's a physical quorum in the room, because if there's not a physical quorum in the room, you all can't, it doesn't matter whether you're remote or in person, you can't conduct a meeting. So yeah, as long as you let us know, and it's for one of the three meetings or reasons identified in the Open Meetings Act, you can, and Rick qualifies today, so his vote counts.
Any discussion on the stipends for the zoning board?
You know what? I think that one also got tabled, Arlen, so let's start with taking it off the table.
So moved.
I'm sorry.
So moved.
Second.
A second by Tim.
Second, all those in favor of taking it off the table, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Now, my question is appropriate. Does anybody want to discuss zoning board? Go ahead.
I proposed this a while back, and I would like to see us amend it to go into effect June 1st, gives the board a chance to vote on it. There's no reason to wait till the new fiscal year, other than I know it's not in the budget. But if I'm not mistaken, there's 5 members of the board, and we're talking about $20 a meeting, which is $100 a meeting, which is somewhere in the $500 or $600 range, which is nothing for the money we spend on other things that aren't budgeted. And these guys, looking at the agenda out in front of them, they have a lot of meetings. They've got a lot of places they have to go and look at stuff. They have to do their homework at home. And I think to wait until the start of the budget year is a mistake. I think we should amend this to, and I would make the motion to amend it to start June 1st.
Is there a second to that motion?
No second.
All right, all those in favor of motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Purchasing policy.
Say that 3 times. So the purchasing policy has been out there for several months to you. I did ask that it be tabled at the last month because there was something came up that pointed out we needed to add a quick revision to that. So that's since been done. I would be happy to entertain any questions. Couple key goals that we were trying to accomplish by amending it. First of all, the amendment started several years ago because the purchasing ordinance at the time called for a lot of responsibility of a county administrator that at the time we didn't have. And so the process started to amend it, but then it didn't get adopted. So we backed up and made some further amendments to it. The most important thing that we added in here, we did work obviously with Paula Meyer. She did most of the work, the legwork. But we worked with Dave Anderson, who is probably the person who does the most under the purchasing ordinance. And one of the things that he really wanted clarified in the purchasing ordinance was the concept of using this joint purchasing. We refer to them, one of the agencies is Sourcewell. So he just wanted it clarified that this joint purchasing concept was a concept that he can use. And that concept essentially says that if you go through an agency like Sourcewell, that in fact is competitive bidding because agencies or vendors have competitively bid to be a part of Sourcewell. So in other words, if you use Sourcewell or a state agency that does this type of product, that you don't need to do the same process with regard to going out for competitive bids. So this was a key thing for Dave to get corrected in the purchasing ordinance, and that's now included. I would entertain any other questions you might have about the purchasing ordinance. And Arlen, I think I jumped in before you ever even had a motion and a second to start discussion. My apologies. Maybe you want to do that first.
Is there someone willing to make a motion to get it on the table?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
second, so it's on the table. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Open for discussion. I've got a question. It's long, Wendy, and so there's a lot of information in there. What would you say are the major changes? I mean, significant changes.
It's primarily the Sourcewell item, and you're going to see that the parent committees have now a role in this process. For example, Properties Committee, who does a lot of bidding for the larger projects that we do, they have a role in this in that they are involved with the actual authority to go out to bid and then the approval of the bid. Other than that, yes, Liam.
Did we add the responsive bidder on here? A few years ago, I talked to a couple of union guys. They said you need to add that on the purchasing responsive bidder
I'm not
for
sure what,
construction. Is that on here?
I'm not sure what you mean by responsive bidder.
What is the definition of it? When the construction companies that are going to do work for the county are responsive bidder by being vetted,
Oh, got it. Yes, there is a section on that. I'm not sure if it gets to where you wanted to go with it, but I'm happy to look at it and have a conversation with you if you want to after the
No,
meeting.
it's okay. I was just
Okay.
wondering. This was a union question a while back.
Other
It's
questions?
called responsive bidder.
Any other questions? You want to vote on it? Want to, I'll entertain a motion. If there's one vote on it.
Arlen, are you talking about the lowest qualified bidder? Language that's in there? It doesn't have to be the lowest bidder, it's the lowest qualified bidder. Is that what you're looking for?
I'm not sure. It was just a responsible bidder. That's what it was called.
That's always been in there along with the cooperative service agreements that Wendy had talked about.
Section 5. Oh, I found it.
Yeah, I was looking for it here.
Any bidder, vendor, contractor, supplier, or prospective bidder who has submitted a bid conforming in all material respects to the requirements set forth in the invitation to the bid. Number 30. So would this be added onto our handbook, or is this part of the handbook, right?
No, it'll be in this policy. So this will be the policy that will govern it. I do have another section here. I'm not sure where you just read that, that says all vendors shall provide the county with any additional information requested by the department head or parent committee. Any vendor who fails to submit the requested information. So, we've got W-9s and various other things that the accounts payable department needs, may be disqualified as an approved county vendor. Is that what you were getting at, Liam? Is whether they're an approved vendor that can work with the county? That's on section 5.
Yeah, I see that now. Yeah. That's fine.
Question is, do you want to vote on it?
Right now, there's verbiage going around where we're going to try to establish a list of county approved vendors for various things. That's still in infancy. Rock Falls has the same thing, Sterling, I believe, has the same thing. We're going to try to make potentially county. That's a long way to be done. Essentially, it would get a list of people that are approved to do concrete work, structural work, carpentry work, all that stuff. And gathering other information like FEIN, top policy.
Do we need to defer this till that's done?
I don't think so.
Any other questions before we vote? I'll entertain a motion. Move.
This was
To
So are we just forwarding this to the executive?
Help, Wendy. What are we doing?
Well, actually,
We
Becky,
tabled it.
actually Becky just whispered in my ear and asked, I think I made a faux pas here because it was tabled. However, it wasn't tabled at this committee. You guys moved it forward to executive. When I got it to executive, that's when I asked executive not to move it forward to full board last month. So technically it was tabled at executive committee, not at this committee. So I'm not sure myself whether you can move it forward, to be honest, because you guys had moved it forward already under the original version. So
We need to rescind our motion and our vote to untable it.
did you did take a motion to untable it?
We did, yeah.
Okay, all right,
Why I was confused.
Is that what your motion is?
I'll rescind my motion.
all right. Who seconded that motion?
Tim,
Tim or Liam, whichever one of you seconded the motion, they're both willing to rescind their motion.
Well, wish Charlie was here to keep us on track.
Yes, exactly.
All those in favor of rescinding the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
So again, I guess technically, because you guys had forwarded it on before I added that revised language, at this point, we're just looking for, essentially a head nod, no formal action, because you already moved it on to executive. We'll make sure at executive, we get the right sequence of events to move it to full board.
What's on the table?
Right.
Now I think we're to the funding request for the Dixon Theater. And that is how much?
100,000. So this is a recommendation coming out of the ARPA committee. This was something that was pledged prior to this committee meeting by ARPA. It's in response to, once again, another grant that was available. City of Dixon approached us and said, would we be willing to cost share on that? So ARPA made a recommendation that we grant the $100,000 to the renovation, and as part of the grant they've received now that's been approved as part of the match.
So, any other, are you aware of any other funding that they've requested from other agencies?
They did ask from the city of Dixon. Now, I can't tell you exactly what was pledged, but my recollection was, do not quote me on this, my recollection was that they were pledging an equal amount.
Yeah, it says in here. they
Thank
have
you,
pledged
Laram.
100,000.
Thank you for actually reading it.
I have a
Said that.
question.
Go ahead.
On this expenditure request, it says in there, but I had a question. Which category does this come off of?
As a point of order, do we
From
not
ARPA.
have to have a motion for this before we discuss it?
Yes, we do, Tom. Thank you for keeping us on
I mean,
track.
interrupt our conversation, but
Yes,
try and get us back on being legal.
thank you. Thank you,
A
Tom.
motion that we fund it.
Laram seconds.
and move to
No.
executive?
Yes.
Oh, yes,
Now we can have discussion.
All right.
there's second.
Yeah, Larry, sorry.
Okay. I'll have.
Go ahead, Larry. You got quick.
Yeah, which category would this come off under ARPA?
I don't recall. Do you gentlemen that were on ARPA, do you recall? I don't think we specified. I think it's out of the remaining funds that we have left that hasn't been allocated, because we have a lot of funds
That's
left,
what
but
I
we've allocated some. So yeah.
Is it?
Rick, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I guess with this whole bike path thing, it hasn't really been discussed. At least I haven't heard of any discussion on what's gonna.
So, Rick, I'm sorry. We're on the historic theater right now.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were talking about the bike path one.
Yep, I think that one's coming up here yet on the agenda, but right now it's the bike path.
Okay,
It's a theater.
theater.
I'm sorry, the theater.
My bad. I'll put my hand down.
There's a lot of that going on. Don't worry about it. We're all confused. Okay, Wendy.
Any more discussion?
Yeah. Wendy, I noticed in the paperwork on this, they specifically say that it'll be between the theater and the city of Dixon. And they named two people, Danny Langloss and I just said the name. Anyway, will these people be getting a salary from this?
Not that I'm aware of, but I don't know the answer to that, Tom.
Because they specifically named two individuals, Heckman and Langloss, and Just wonder
I
how that-
suspect that's probably because for grant purposes, they have to name the person who's going to manage the grant. In other words, the person that's going to be responsible for making sure the money gets spent in the way it was intended to be spent.
Okay.
I don't know for sure, but I'd be very surprised if the city of Dixon authorized additional money to city manager Danny. I think it's just for
Thank you.
protocol.
Just don't clarify.
It would be important to me to know if other, like the city, being big, the example of, are they donating to that?
They did according to this paper,
How much?
100,000.
If they did?
Yeah, they had 100,000 in it also.
We know enough information to vote. I'll entertain a motion.
We have a motion second.
Yeah, we got a motion and a second.
Or, we'll vote. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Arlen, the next one is the EDA planning grant that is involved with Jason Anderson, and you guys already moved that earlier on the agenda.
Right.
So now you're down to the IDOT raise grant, which is the multi-use path or the bike path, as I refer to it. And this is the one that Rick was concerned about earlier. So keep in mind that this committee already, let me back up. When this first came to us from the city of Dixon, this concept, we had a deadline to get a grant in. So we found out about it after the March ARPA committee meeting, but before committee week. So it went on at Bob's request on the finance, your agenda last month. You approved the project. We moved it to the full board for approval. I took it back and circled back to the ARPA committee only because it is ARPA money and I thought they should be made aware and have an opportunity to weigh in on it, and they did. It came out of the ARPA committee with approval. But it doesn't need to move to you guys for approval today because you technically already voted on it a month ago, as did the full board. So you'd be circling back and potentially voting on something you've already voted on. Any questions about that? Rick, I know that was a concern of yours. Again, finance voted on it last month and full board did.
Well, I thought we voted to give the money for the grant. I'm fully aware of that. I guess the continuation of the project is where my concern is, as you know, there hasn't been any discussion about who's going to take care of this path long-term, at least to my knowledge. And so that's where I guess the support for, in my camp, stops until we get some answers to some of those questions.
So to clarify, this is a planning grant. So similar to the EDA grant, what this does is just develops the plan so that then we can go after whatever grant money may be available. So very similar situation to what Jason just described. This approval, and it's in the minutes of the full board meeting, was for $5,000 to go towards the cost of writing the grant and up to $50,000 of match. But again, this is still the planning stage of it. That's when discussions will occur about who's going to maintain it. What would be the most feasible section of bike path to start with, and where would we get the money from? That's all part of this project that the board approved up to $50,000 in match to proceed forward with.
Sure, and I understand that. I guess my concern is, again, some people's opinion might change whether this is a viable project if that conversation has been had, knowing if we're going to be in charge of this or if the city of Dixon's going to take the lead. I guess that's where I'm at. I don't like to spend money if it's not something that's going to be something long-term for the county, I guess.
But again, at this point, you've officially moved and the full board officially moved the 5,000 and up to 50,000. Of course, this does assume we are awarded the grant. So at that point, if the grant is awarded and the planning begins, I think that's when we start having those conversations, Rick, about what it's going to look like and who's going to maintain it and who's going to take the lead on it.
I understand. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I understand what you're saying.
Don't need anything, Arlen. So you need no action out of this committee.
Don't have an executive session plan.
No,
Back
wait.
up. We got one more thing on there. That is the Lee County Sheriff Office request for the Starcom radios. So John spoke to the ARPA committee. Unfortunately, it was not on the ARPA committee's agenda, similar to the whole bike path conversation. And so the committee members recommended that he come here to the finance committee and put forth his proposal. So with that said, John is making his way to the microphone.
Nice and cool in here today. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. For some of you, this is going to be a repeat, but I'm asking for some radio replacements at, I think it's 24,200. Wendy, is that correct on the
Yes.
document?
I'll verify.
What happened, long story short, is I was planning on coming into this August at budget hearings and planning on a 3-year replacement program for all our radios, portables and mobile radios. And unfortunately, they got ahead of me. So some of them are shooting craps already and we can't repair them. So they're at the point where we have to replace them. So I started looking at other avenues besides replacing them with new, and I did happen to find a place in Colorado that does refurbish the exact portable radio models that we use and also the mobiles. And we're able to can acquire them at a significant reduction in cost. However, they don't have as many as I would like to have. So I need 8 replacement portable radios now. And I think I have on the request 2 to 3 mobiles and also microphones and some accessories to total 24,200. So I did ask the ARPA committee to consider it. However, it wasn't on their agenda. So I wanted to come to finance. It would be a category that it could be approved through ARPA funding if you so wish. But I at least wanted you to know what I was requesting. This would then be the first year of the 3-year plan, if in fact we did replace these radios at this time. There was a question at the ARPA committee, if I recall, I made the comment that Motorola is going to increase their charges on the radios by 10%, a market adjustment. I thought it was going to be May 17th. Unfortunately, it was May 9th. The 2 new radios that I would have to order through Motorola, I did get preliminarily ordered before the 9th. So I did get it at the pre-May 9th cost. If you would approve, I can always pull back on that order if this isn't approved.
Is ARPA restricted from, could they, if they got approved by that, could they buy all 3 years?
There was a discussion about that, Arlen, and while that's a nice gesture, I have some other things on the ARPA committee for them to take a look at that are in doing triage, probably more important than the replacement of all 3 years of those radios at this point in time.
Is there a limit on the money available?
As far as for the other things that I'm going to request,
Yeah.
the limit is what you have in your coffers left in ARPA.
And do we know how much that is ballpark?
So we've got unallocated about 1.1 million for this year. If you remember last month, the board allocated $1 million to put out there for 2023 and another $1 million out there for 2024. We've allocated a certain amount for economic development, a certain amount for the business, small business grant program that we're operating right now. So this year, what remains is 1.1 million. To put this in perspective, we currently have, including John's requests, about $6 million worth of requests that the ARPA committee is now working their way through. So the question remains, Arlen, do we have enough money? It depends on the priorities of the ARPA committee. Having said that, I think what John said at the meeting, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, John, but there's some timing issues here. You had originally intended to do this through your budget, but that now it's more time critical or time sensitive. That's why he's coming forward and asking for it out of ARPA funding. So I would throw the question back to you. Do we have the money?
What category does this again come off of?
This would come out of the 1.1 million that we have remaining that is unallocated.
Point of order, we need a motion before we discuss. Sorry, but we have great conversation. We need a motion
Yes.
to discuss.
And thanks again, Tom, for keeping us on track.
I'll make a motion to discuss this.
Second.
The move and second questions.
Shouldn't the motion be to approve or
Yes.
not
It
just
is,
to
it is.
discuss
We
it?
have to
Because
discuss it.
I misspoke. I'm sorry.
John, question. Okay, I understand the issue, I think. They cannot repair the radios, but there is somebody that's refurbishing radios that you can buy.
Correct,
So is that the same radio you now have?
correct.
Look, for the purpose of conversation, let's call them Model 1. Is that fair?
Okay,
So I understand it, okay. So Model 1s can't be repaired and you can't buy them.
oh, yes, I can buy them brand new if I
Oh.
want, but the cost is gonna be, for portables, about another $1,200 for a new one. For mobiles, about another $1,500 for a new one.
Okay, how does warranty compare on a new one compared to refurbished one?
Warranty is gonna be much better on new,
On new?
yes.
I know I always
Refurbished is just-
shock you when I start talking about spending more money, but I mean, is this a prudent thing to do to buy these refurbished, or are we kidding ourselves in this 3-year plan? Are we gonna get the end of 3 years and have a lot of radios have to be replaced because first of all, my first question was, are they the same radio?
Correct.
And if you can't repair them, so Motorola can't repair them, but somebody is refurbishing them.
There's some that cannot be repaired. The ones that I have repaired, I
Okay.
have and got that done.
Oh,
but-
okay,
But
okay.
unfortunately, the repair cost is close to $700, Tom. That's about half the price of a refurbished radio.
Okay, well, no, that's what I'm just trying to understand.
But I
the-
have done some
The
of that.
economics, I
along the way.
appreciate that, because
Is there any way in between that some could be done till you get I hate to take it away from someone we don't know on the ARP plan, but yet I don't know how long you can go without new radio.
And it's a timing thing. And getting back to your question and concern, Tom, is yes, it would be nice to get all new. The unfortunate thing is when we knew coming into it, we were going to need a couple new mobile radios coming into this year. I had budgeted for those. We ordered those in October before this fiscal year started, knowing we probably weren't going to get them until this fiscal year. Lo and behold, we didn't get them till the end of April. So we're waiting almost 6-7 months
Okay.
before for these radios to come in. It's the way of the world right now with chips and anything, you're going to have to wait for quite a while. So for me to order new ones right now, I won't see them till likely October, maybe.
so new ones is maybe a better purchase, but it's not gonna satisfy the need.
It's not going to help the immediate need, no.
Okay,
The ones I can get from, and also, I don't know if this makes you feel more comfortable or not, but in the end of February, I talked to Kevin Lally. He's the one that helped locate this place in Colorado. Ogle County has also ordered some radios from this place, had good luck with them. Kevin's had good luck with them. I ordered 2 rather than ordering 8 right off the bat and finding out that they weren't going to work for us. They are working just fine right now. So I did order 2.
will
from them.
they give us anything for the old ones that you are replacing, for components or parts? Or,
I don't know. I didn't ask him that.
I mean, otherwise, what would we do with them, I guess is.
Give them back
I
to
know I'm
Motorola.
micromanaging, and I don't mean to, but if we're just throwing them out and they can use them for parts, it seems like they pay the. shipping.
That's a good possibility. I will ask him. Yeah, I did not.
A lot of people are gonna be taxing them for radios apparently. It's
Sure.
just a thought. you know.
Sure. Good thought. Yes, sir.
My microphone here. John, my only question was, with these refurbished radios, say 2 years down the road, will they work, will they be compatible with what's new? I know that's looking into the future. You see what I'm saying? It's getting back to Arlen, just wondering if we wouldn't be better off, or maybe it was Tom, going with all new currently. I understand the difference in cost. I'm very conservative when it comes to spending money, but I also don't want to waste money. And my concern is that these refurbished ones will still be compatible a couple years down the road.
Compatible with our system, yes.
Yes.
Starcom hasn't changed. We pay $25,000 a year just in a service fee to stay on the Starcom system. So they are compatible with Starcom. They're also Bluetooth capable, so we can use wireless mics and things of that nature with the current portables that we have. When we did buy these 8 years ago, some of the portables, we made sure that we got the latest and greatest at that time. I think we all know how technology changes. I don't know what they're going to look like in 2 or 3 years. I wish I could tell you, but
Right.
I do know that what we have works very well for what we use them for. And they have the bandwidth we need. They have all the channels and the state channels and the critical incident channels that we could use if we have a large critical incident that we're bringing in other agencies, so we can have interoperable communications with everybody that's on the Starcom system. So they're as capable as they can be in today's world. It's about the best I can.
Wendy, do you have
explain.
any idea when ARPA is meeting again?
Yeah, they'll be meeting again the first Thursday in the month of June. So they meet every month.
So Wendy, do we not have $1 million given to finance to approve for ARPA stuff? Is that correct?
For capital projects, you could put this under the umbrella of a capital project, but I feel the need, because I can feel Tom Wilson, slapping me across the back of the head because he's got HVAC and
Yep.
so I don't know that he doesn't have all that really accounted for.
Well, I'm pretty sure the 6 million could have went for 12 million already, but
Yeah, and remember, we got an elevator that's broken in the other building, so I'm pretty sure he's got a lot of that spoken for, so I don't want to give you the idea that there's money available there when there may not be.
okay, question to you and John both. Can we approve this from finance based on ARPA approving it, or does that delay it too long to get them ordered? Is there a problem with that?
ARPA couldn't approve anything at the meeting because it wasn't on the agenda. This obviously came up
After,
last minute.
Yeah.
So I don't know, as far as your board rules, I don't know if you can approve it and it goes through the board and then you can move it through the ARPA funding mechanism.
but you're not, Tom, you wouldn't necessarily be gaining anything if you approved it pending ARPA approval, unless I guess the full board did the same thing, then all we'd have to wait for is the ARPA approval and then it could move forward.
Come out of the general fund that we've already taxing for everything also.
Why are we going backwards to ARPA?
Only because we're talking about using ARPA funds, Liram, that's why. But here's the thing. The board is the spending authority for ARPA. ARPA committee is supposed to be helping facilitate this, but the board is the spending authority. So if you want, that's why we ended up doing the bike path the way we did. If you want to move it forward to the full board and approve this, you have the authority to do it. It's just whether or not you want to.
I don't think during the ARPA committee and the discussion, it didn't seem to me there was any objection to this. Also, Sheriff, if you were to change to new, has been suggested, wouldn't you have to change your entire system of repeaters and mobile radios along with the portables?
No,
You
we would
wouldn't?
not. No,
Okay.
it'd just be a programming upcharge for
Okay.
the new radios. But again, it's the delay that concerns me.
Okay. So, the other thing is the only lifeline any law enforcement official has out there, and especially in Lee County, when it's 3 a.m. and it's dark and your closest backup's 40 miles away. The only lifeline you have is communication to the dispatcher. And it's vitally important that you have that communication. If that breaks down at any point in time, we're jeopardizing our deputies' lives. So I would move the question, Mr. Chairman.
So gentlemen, we want to do something now?
Call for the question.
I'm calling for the question,
So you got to vote.
the motion, calling for the motion. Vote.
Okay.
Let's do a roll call.
Arlen McLean,
Mike.
Tom Kitson,
Yes. Any more
Larry
conversation?
Mamini,
Yes.
Doug Farster,
Yes.
Rick Humphrey,
Yes.
Tim Bivens.
Yes.
Okay.
We have a motion, we're buying your radios, and I don't think anybody here is opposed to that. But where are we taking the money from? We haven't,
The logical place is the 1.1 million that we have yet unallocated.
which Tom Wilson's gonna want that.
Oh, he's got 1.5, that's another pot.
Oh, all right, okay. I just want to make sure where we're getting the money.
It's another pot that's probably already gone, but just saying, he has another pot.
Can I say something to, maybe this will relate to the radios? We had a terrible accident on my road the other day, a couple of days ago, and I don't know, maybe I'm exaggerating, but within 5 minutes, there were 3 squad cars, counting cars in there. I don't know where they come from. That's communication. Hopefully the radios in the
and lucky to be close to the area at the right time.
You said one of them was.
But you did have an Ashton car on as well, so that helped. Yes, thank you.
John, question for you while you're still there, if I may. When you come into the budget, are you planning for new radios or will you look for more of these rebuilds?
At the budget hearing, and I'll talk to, well, yes, I'm gonna ask for new.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I'm gonna ask for new. And I know it's hot in here, 15 seconds. I just would like to update you. It's not on the agenda, but it was last month. I kind of told you that our fuel costs are going up. Everybody's aware of that. So we're another $10,000 last month. We're used to paying somewhere between 6,500 and 7,000. So you can see what this is doing to our budget. We budgeted for, well, the budget was approved for 80,000. I actually requested a little bit more, having an idea that costs were going to go up. So we're going to get to that point likely in July, where we're going to be zero budget in our fuel.
Sheriff,
So-
where do you get your department, get your gas at now?
We have a WEX card now, and I don't know if you're aware of it, working maybe as a senator with the state, but all state units use WEX. It's a central fuel system, if you will, which actually, when we use it, we can use it at any gas station. Doesn't, Amoco, Shell, Road Ranger, wherever, which is nice. And also they take off some of the taxes, which usually equate to about 9% of our total bill will come off because they take some taxes off because we're a police or law enforcement agency. So there is some cost savings benefit by using the WEX card, as well as the convenience of going to any gas station.
Yeah, so it's a program that you go to the gas stations, but you're still going to the gas
Yep.
stations, so.
I started that about 2015, I think, and I think some other county agencies actually went to it. I think Dave Anderson, Kevin, and some of the other big fuel users have went to it. And I think it's a good program.
So we had our own 10,000 gallon tank at one time, which saved the county substantial money when you can buy it by the tanker. And I think that's something that needs to be looked at once
I
again.
don't think we have any other agenda items, so.
It's not, no, I just wanted to keep you aware of it, where we're.
Motion adjourned.
I'll second.
All in
Aye.
favor? Aye. It was unanimous.
Second.
Timur,
Thank God
Timur
you're here,
Laramie.
Chair. We were discussing stuff without having motions. We needed Robert of Rules of Order here.